Good day. Welcome to Six Elementals interviews. I say author interviews. We might start going into blogger territory, author, blogger. With some of our guests in the future. We'll talk about it another time. But right now, I would love to introduce to you my fabulous guest today, Emily Bell. She's a wonderful author, publisher. She's multifaceted. She wears a lot of hats. We'll get into that soon. However, Emily, thank you so much for joining today. I'm so honored.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to be here. So let's chat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think if it's okay with you, we will start off by learning a bit more about you in terms of what you do in the book space with all the different hands you have in various pies. So author, etc.
Yes. So I write fantasy, and that's where, my heart is. Well, my heart's many places, but one of them is writing fantasy. We also have a small press, Atthis Arts, and we're publishing other authors and all kinds of interesting and eclectic and I think important projects. Some that were available to larger publishers, but we were the ones that took them on. And so I'm really proud of that work. I'm a parent. I live here in Ferndale, Michigan. Visited by, I have some cats that occasionally crash my live stream. This is Xavier. He's the floppy brother.
Gorgeous.
And and hi Tim Cool. Hi, this is cool. I didn't know I would be able to see the chat, so it's good to see you. Yeah, I always feel like I'm forgetting something, but that's plenty. That's plenty to go on.
Yeah, that's a lot. And
okay, so I do some volunteer work. We don't need to get that, and I also am running programming for Gen Con Writer Symposium. I suppose that's another big hat that I have on.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is incredible. And yes, quick shout out to Kulish, and who also notes that Emily is very kind. She's that selling back into joy, and she says, "Yeah, you too." So wow, that those are a lot of hats, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
And what's driven you to take on so many different things in the book space besides just writing, which is a lot?
Yeah, originally it was not in the plan to do the publishing piece. I was writing because I needed to. I encourage people to talk about that. It's not about, people equate that with whether you're successful or not or financially. Everyone from people who write strictly for themselves, write in a diary, to people who are best-selling authors will tell you that a lot of us write because we had to. And that doesn't, I say that because that does not minimize the art that we're doing. It doesn't say, oh, well, that's just stuff you had to do. That's what art is. Art is things that you are compelled to, good art is things that you are compelled to make for some reason. We had a friend who had wanted to write for a while and saw some of the work that Chris, my spouse, had done on my first novel, and said, oh, you're kind of good at that self-publishing bit. And so we made her book, and it kind of went from there to the place where we are, a full, small, but traditional publisher, taking on books, working, internationally, and just because I love what we do. And I'm very, very fortunate to have a spouse who actually can, we've put everything into this. It's really, because it took on its old life. And there was a point where we just realized this is not a thing you can, and I'm not talking about writing or creating, I'm talking about running a small press. It's not really a thing that what we're doing can be done part-time. It's what we do. And I'm not speaking for anyone else's small business or how they run it, but our press, the way we're running it, needed both of us doing it. And so we are all in. And sometimes I joke we're all in on all in. The other things, it's just, frankly, it's the hustle. And I talk a lot online, if you look at my social media, about the crunch on creators right now. And I do think it's getting worse. I don't mean historically, but I mean in the local space, kind of the big self-publishing boom. All the internet opened up a lot of options, and now we're getting squeezed. And I think people need to see that. But the hustle requires networking and marketing and reaching out and being seen and visibility and all these things that to a lot of us are a combination of exhausting and also fun. So I love Gen Con. I really, really love it. And I love the authors that we work with there. And it's become a place where I can contribute, I can help people, and I can also meet and connect.
That's incredible. So I want to clarify something here based on what you said. So I presume that you publish your books through your own uh, small press, right?
Yeah. So they're self-published.
Yes, but
Sort of.
why was it important for you to create a small press, including for yourself? You've delved a bit into why for the authors, but why was it important to do that as opposed to simply, completely self-publishing and just, you upload your book on Amazon and ta-da? And what was the impetus to do to put all the work in to run a business, to create a small press?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that it was slightly a bit of delusion on my part, honestly, uh, and responsibility, but mostly delusion, where I was not in a good mental space when I started writing. I loved what I was doing, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to be positioned, and you can do this without the small press, obviously. But the way we did it is we created a business name. We put things under that business. We were taking it very, very seriously. Now, if you had told me 12 years later you're still not making the money, but you're still believing you will real soon, I don't know. I'm glad I didn't know. I'm glad I didn't know, because I love what we're doing now, and I'm glad to be doing it. And yeah, the choice early on to form the business and do the paperwork and all of that really set us up well to do what we're doing now.
I had the privilege, obviously, of meeting you. We first met at London, Ontario Comic Con, which is, has near and dear to me, especially because of that. Got to meet your lovely husband as well briefly when he came to. I think you just love to see relationships where you can see that you're close, you're supportive, and I think he brought you either coffee or tea, and then of course packed up and just Now I know that for me, my lovely wife Debbie, shout out, honey, I love you if you're gonna watch this later. She's the business manager, and we've incorporated the business with the writing stuff too, and we both have our own roles. But it is wonderful and great to work with someone you trust implicitly, and but also it can be challenging, because you're in the same household, like if there's an argument over the business, well, that can translate to
We have a small house. He's right there. It was 5 minutes before this that I said that he was saying sort of interesting things to the cat, the other cat. Not well, that one's gone. And I said, I'm going live in 5 minutes. You can't be back there making those, cat loving noises. So yes, it's a very small house. So
yeah. So I mean, there's such great benefits, and I think more advantages and disadvantages. Certainly working with your partner, with your life partner in the business. But yeah, that also can bring on some challenges. So how do you navigate that working together as both partners in life and also partners in this business? Like, how do you navigate that?
honestly, well, I mean, there's the normal answer of you're in a relationship, you talk, you make it work, you love each other. And yeah, he's a wonderful life partner. He's a wonderful small press partner. He's a wonderful everything. And I think that beyond that, I think people of a certain age, at least in certain cultures, we were raised not to talk about relationships. Um, this is a huge theme in my Alicia books. We're not going into those now, but like it's a huge theme. People, and it really, I love the way that people interpret it in so many ways. A lot of people say, those books are really exploring polyamory, and then other people look at them and say, this is just repressed, Gen X person actually talking about like fundamental concepts in relationships because we weren't raised that way. And my point in working with Chris is I think that has helped. It's helped us a lot to clarify in life what different types of relationships you have, because there's not one type of spouse. There's not one type of friend. There's not, one type of parental relationship. Everyone's different. And, that's been something that I think has been important for us to learn, is that we are not necessarily, well, not necessarily, that's me being overly polite. We are not creatively meshed. That is not the relationship we have. I have people that I feel very close to creatively on a deep soul level, and I've learned that that's important too. I think when Chris and I were actually able to get to a point where you can talk about yourselves as two separate people with two very separate personalities, and understand that we're not just, with this press, we're somebody that has this personality and creative and let's do it and I believe, and then we're this, more pragmatic, I think he would want to say, business sided minded. When you actually see each other for the people that you are, and that you're awesome, and talk about your relationship is not a one size fits all. And that sounds sort of, I don't want to read into that. That just means that a lot of people our age ish have not learned to be open with each other, to realize that people have different needs for each other, that they're just different people. And so that's been, I think, key to us balancing that, is not expecting everything to be just yay. He gets stressed about the finances, and I don't blame him. And I get it. And I am a charge forward kind of guy. So we just once you understand each other a little bit, it comes back to that concept of just being a team and talking it out, and just the liberation of honesty, which again, a lot of us were not taught to do. It sounds so basic. We were not taught to just sit and talk honestly with someone. I feel like this. I feel like this. Okay. How can we work together? I think that openness, and I am framing it somewhat generationally, because I, have kids, and it's not the same for a lot of the younger people. They're ahead of us in that regard. They'll have their own challenges, it's not, but just talk to each other, and it sounds, for a lot of us, we didn't do that, necessarily. We just got frustrated. And why isn't this working? And try to sit down and talk. So.
No, that's so well said, and beautiful in that you've both come to that place and that realization and that ability to communicate on that level, and it's very refreshing and it's wonderful, and I'm very happy for you both. I know, just for reference with me, that for example, Deb doesn't read fantasy, doesn't really like it. She'll read the odd thing, certainly not the uber, the chunky, super intense, super dark, grim stuff that I love to read. And if I didn't write them, she'd never read my books. She's an integral part for me of the editing process. Like, she gets first eyes on everything. But at the same time, if we weren't married and we weren't in this entrepreneurial thing together, she'd never read my books. And but what I love is she brings a very different perspective to the whole thing, not just the business side, but writing. And she's got a background in marketing. She's very smart. But I think the other thing is what you were talking about is that, it's really, I think, in a lot of ways, helped accentuate our relationship on a different level. And, when you have to be honest with someone because it involves the bottom line of your business and it's your partner, that's a different conversation than you have with someone who's not, right? And beyond that, you said something, it really struck me and is so, for me, so true and resonated, that, we do get and acquire different things from different relationships. It's different what you get from, that writer who is your top alpha or beta reader, that you're just synced on elements of, the narrative. And that's different from what you may get from your spouse reading your book and telling you, well, I didn't like this character. That's very different. It's a very different proposition, right? And it's so important that we have and value all those relationships, and that neither are a threat. None of them are a threat to each other.
Yes, neither are a threat. And also it helps you value each one more. A lot of the tension between Chris and I, or throughout this process, has been when he was reading my books. He does love fantasy. He loves sci-fi. He's not my fan writing wise. Don't take it in a bad way, but I would be like, read this, I made it. And he would read it and say, that's okay. Or, I don't know if people are going to like this. And it was so discouraging. And that's not his fault. What was he supposed to pretend? So one of the best things we did is realize that's not his role in this. That's not his role. Don't, and I've learned this in my friendships in some very difficult ways as well. Let people be who they are. I mean, we all work and we change, and people should be good to each other and stuff. But let people be who they are and love them for who they are. There's a reason you're in that friendship, in that relationship, in that marriage. Chris doesn't get. Actually, it comes back to Lord's Dome. That was one of the lessons I learned with this book. I don't know if we're at that point yet, but I almost didn't publish it, and I didn't read it for 2 years because of something like that.
Yeah, we are getting to the point where we're definitely going to talk about your work. I want to give a quick shout out to JBJ Blazer. What's up? Another friend of great supporter of my work personally and one person in the community. Thank you so much for tuning in, and good morning to you. So I just want to pop that up there. Yeah, and we're going to get into your work, and I think just quickly on that point that when for some, you and I, for example, are very blessed in that we can actually have our partners involved in that in anything to do with our, like there's lots of partners that are extremely supportive, but they don't read their spouse's books. They don't have anything to do with that side. They will provide support in other ways, whether that's taking care of pets and children so that you can free up time to write, and those are all vital and really, really important things, right? Like those, I'm not minimizing those, but it's a different level when your spouse is actually involved with the business and the writing aspect of being a creative, and that's special. And yeah, you and I are people, and there's lots more people that I know in our situation. We're very blessed. We have to be
very much.
And
Chris does read it all eventually. To clarify, we've just moved him out of the critique and encouragement role. We put him in the he gets to them all at some point, usually like review with the new books, reviewing the audiobooks, which is a huge help to me, and it gives him a chance to experience it without that expectation and pressure. And I cannot stress enough, in terms of being blessed, what a leap of faith this man has taken over and over and over again in ways that were strictly unreasonable. To give up so many things. I don't want to complain, but we've risked a lot. We've given up a lot to say, because I have looked at him and said, I believe we can do this. I believe in this. I know you're not seeing it, but I see it. I know it. And the trust, even sometimes, he's cranky and stuff. You cannot downplay the level of trust and love that is in that. We talk a lot, right, in publishing about things like privilege, things like luck, things like opportunity. Who did the person meet, or where were they, or what advantages? I don't know what you want to call it. Intervention or luck or whatever. It is not common to end up as somebody in an engineering field meeting somebody who ends up doing all your accounting and legal and management and bookkeeping and typesetting for your writing. I don't know how it happened either, but I'm very grateful. Yeah. And that's one reason I want to give back with the press, honestly, is because I am not, special. I'm just in a unique position for a lot of strange reasons. I'm in a unique position, and I don't mean unique like I'm the only one that publishes, but it's a pretty specific road that led me here. Pretty just my road. And, other people have different ones. And so how could I not share that with, sounds, maybe I shouldn't, but this is live, so sorry, Crystal, I'm saying I'm sharing you, but you know what I mean. How can I not share that? Partnership, we'll call it.
and it's just like, again, my heart just swells to hear about that. And yeah, it is invaluable. You can't put a price on what you have in terms of, that. So kudos to you and kudos to him as well. So yeah, it's about time we start delving into work. So I had the privilege. The
press just put a smiley face in the chat. I am presuming that's Chris,
yes. So
Chris on our account. I've tried to keep them off our accounts because they kept liking the Kansas City football stuff. But Hi, Chris. I'm assuming that's you. Thanks for the little grin.
So this, I presume, is your tech person or one of your ops from Atthis Arts, which is your
I think
husband.
that's Chris in the
Oh,
office.
it's Chris,
Thing.
your husband. Okay, so
Yeah,
okay.
I think he was enjoying my. He listened. He apparently is tuning in, so that's nice.
Well,
Hi, Chris.
awesome. Well, thank you and welcome, and thanks for tuning in. So yeah, it's about time we get into your work. So first of all, I picked up, I believe, a few of your books, and I believe I have some other ones on the shelves. But I got the privilege of reading this beauty, Lord's Dome, that you were in, and I have to say, like, I loved it, and it was not what I expected. It was quirky. It subverted some expectations. I have so much admiration for people like you, Emily, who are so adept at writing short fiction. I'm not. I feel like I'm one of those people who, if I don't have enough page count to express and get across the things I want to say, I can't do it effectively. And this is a skill to be able to do that. You packed so much in here. You had romance, you had religion, you had, it felt dystopian. It felt there were so many elements to this book that I loved. And I was just so impressed at how much you managed to get in here, into this relatively short book. I think it's 175 pages, and it was just it was wonderful. I suppose in this space, oftentimes you meet fellow creatives. You're like, oh, I'm going to give that book a try, and I don't want to say we keep our expectations low,
I've
but
been
I
there.
think after all, we temper our expectations in terms of, okay, hopefully it's great, and if it's not, it's okay. I support a fellow creative. I got a book, but when it's like, hey, this is really good, it's always that great feeling, right? That
Yeah,
it's not just because I bet you always thought you were fabulous and you're amazing, you're intelligent, and but the test is always, it's not a test, but it's different when you actually start to read the person's work. You know what I mean? As an
I know and it's both things. It's also we understand, and everybody's writing is important. Everybody's writing is needed by someone, and but we all know there's sometimes you pick up some book and it's but there's also a thing that it might just not be for you, right? It's a great book. It's really well done, but it's like, okay, this is not I'm not the audience for this.
not my cup of tea. But in this case, I was, and I didn't
Hey.
know what I was going to be, and that was great. So, can you tell us a bit about this book in particular before we talk about your other writing? Because I'm the host, so I got to talk about the one that I read first. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I find that I write short fiction very differently than I write long fiction, and honestly, I don't know. I'm always more than all the jokes about multiplicity and all these things. I'm too many things at once. But I always say that I prefer long fiction because I think as a reader I do. As a reader, I read fast. I love to get into world building. I love to get into characters. So I love like a saga that I can just go on with forever and it's still there and so I also really feel kind of old school about writing in the sense that I I love the idea of storytelling. And I know that my longer books get criticized and that's okay. It's not for you, not for you, for not being as, tightly plot driven and arced and all those things. And for me, I love hearing a storyteller and I want to be a storyteller. And yet, so when I write longer fiction, I think of myself as a reader. I want to sit down and have somebody show me a whole world and teach and take me with them and lead me on adventures and meet people and sigh and watch characters grow and learn. And I love that. When I write shorter fiction, which usually is flash, for a lot of reasons, tip on, I think I don't know if the cats are like wrestling in the background. I hope it's the cats. Um, when you read, when I sorry, distracted myself with cat wrestling. Um, when I little tip for if you're trying to get into anthologies, don't write to the max limit because uh, longer stories are great, a lot of people do them really well. Some people do them better than they do flash or shorter. But especially if you're not real well known, an editor is going to have a lot easier time, fitting a story in. Also, it's a good practice. So for me, as somebody that's not, hasn't been real well known, most of the things that I've had published have been very short, flash to like 1,500 words. And I love it. And I think I'm good at it. I really love writing to a prompt. It's different than my idea of I'm going to sit and take you on, I'm going to be a storyteller. And it's not one thing, it's all the things. It's storytelling, it's life, it's love. But for short fiction, when I read it and when I write it, I like to get, a bite. I'm not going on a journey. I just want I eat the bite and I go, and it's done. I can go do something else now. I might still think about it, but that was it, So I had written mostly kind of flash to 2,000 word stuff, which I've done a lot. And I had done a lot of longer fiction. And I was in between. This is before my literal near-death experience and sort of realizing I got to calm down in some regard. But this was back when I was just like pushing so hard. I had to do everything. And I was in between edits. So I was like, okay, got to do something, got to write something. And I decided to do an experiment. So this was in 2018. Everything changed for me in 2020, and that's, I'm okay now. But this was in 2018. And so I just made it like, I didn't expect to publish it or anything. It was like an exercise. It was like, I wonder if I could this is not a novella, it's a novel, but it's a short novel. And I was like, I wonder if I can apply the short fiction skills that I think I've been developing to just make a little book that reads like a short story, but also reads like a novel. It was a complete, like, just writing experiment on my part. And I sat down and I threw away my normal sort of self-indulgence of I want to write a world and I'm going to be, go on forever. And I just thought, okay, actual tight plot. I was thinking a lot about power and power consolidation and wealth consolidation. And I don't know if I should admit this, but now it's too much of a spoiler. There was a simple video game that dealt with those things that I was watching at the time. My family was playing all the time, and it had to do with this idea of consolidation. And so I wrote this plot, and then I sat in about 3 weeks, I think, total, and wrote the whole book in about 3 weeks. And I sent it to a couple of people, and not Chris, but I'm not going to name who. I sent it to a couple of people, and they're like, I don't know, kind of makes me uncomfortable. They were people of a certain generation, not mine, and I put the book away. Just put the book away. In 2020, again, I don't want to go on about that because it's just past. I did have a full kind of breakdown. I was on sedatives. There's a very, very ugly situation, and I almost didn't make it, but I did. As I was coming back out of things, I was not in a really good position to write. So it's funny, but a lot of my work comes from that year in 2020, and it was not the pandemic. The beginning of the pandemic just exacerbated everything. People say, well, yeah, 2020 was a hard year. I'm like, no, 2020 was a hard year for me. Then there was a pandemic. It was a lot. So I tried, but I couldn't. It was actually someone we mutually admire, Tad Williams, who was on his live streams that he was doing to kind of comfort people. And I said something very like unhinged. Thank you, Tad, for like putting up with that. And Ted was like, I'm not a mental health person, but we have fantasy, right? And I was like, yeah, fantasy. So I started world building for Alicia, because world building I could do. I could get and I was on a lot of medication and things, but I could get the mind together to just start world building this world. And then I was like, oh yeah, I wrote that book 2 years ago. I sent it to a couple friends and they were like, Emily, this is really good. It needs like a little polish, but it's really good. And I said, I thought it was just sort of meh. And they're like, no, it's not meh. It's special. It's interesting. And I felt like editing it and with friends and putting it together was, because it was already written, but it needed editing, was something that I could do in that time, that I could pull, because I was still there, but I was very in a fog, but I could find myself long enough and concentrate enough to edit this book. And I had a lot of friends read it. And this was actually a turning point. A huge supporter of mine who has passed away since, Deborah Riley, was a wonderful person, just incredible person. And she scolded me in a way that I accept, a loving scold, not because I have PTSD with scolding, but this was not that type. This was a good one. And she says, Emily, stop sending your work to people who are not its audience before it is published. Don't do it anymore. Do not do it anymore. Until it's published, it goes to people who get what you're doing, period. And I was like, yes, ma'am. But it was true, and it really helped. And so I knew that the book kind of lightly scanned some pretty touchy concepts. So I actually had a lot of friends and BIPOC writers and people I trusted to be real with me read it. And so we did a round of edits, but the edits weren't too involved. It was mostly just polishing and, okay, yeah, that it doesn't quite work, and a couple plot holes. And then so I published this book actually in 2020. It's funny, a lot of my work came out in 2020, and people thought, oh, you must have been productive. No, I was not productive. I was surviving. And it was older work. I published Awkward Tomatoes, which is a collection of short fiction that, again, I had all previously written, and I just curated it. I did the world building for the Alicia world. I started writing the Just Duology. It was a serial, but that was, well, I'd already started that, and I kept going through that. And then this book, which I had written 2 years ago, I went and edited. So a lot of that 2020 work, which I'm very proud of, was surviving by taking things that I had already done, but maybe even self-rejected them, and giving them the love that they needed or that they deserved. And that those projects convinced me that I could still do this. I was like, okay, I can still edit. I can still, because I was scared. I was scared I couldn't do it again. I was really scared. I was like, is this, and if I couldn't, I'd still be a cool person. That's okay. But it's okay, I think, to be scared. What if I can't do this thing that I really love? And I can do it. I'm, my brain is not it's got some bumps in it, some dings. We're not getting the 10-point rating on the comic scale anymore on the brain. But I love what I'm doing, and I'm so proud of this book because it's weird. And I think the reason it's weird and quirky and all those things is because I wasn't taking myself so seriously. I was doing it as an exercise, but I was taking the writing seriously, but not myself and my expectations. I was like, I'm just going to see if I can do this. And I put my heart into it for those 3 weeks and just wrote but almost writing it as an experiment really made it freer and different, I think.
That's incredible.
Yeah, there were a couple plot holes in here I see from the chat, and
yeah,
they happen to everybody. You listen to the best-selling authors say, yeah, I realize that this is totally implausible, and you lay on the bed or in the shower or whatever you have, and you think about it and you go, it's unsolvable, I can't fix it. Oh, that would be perfect and actually better than the way I had it. And then you go do
it. Exactly. And I think we've all been there. And thank you for that comment, JVJ. I just want to pop up a quick hi to Daniel. Thanks, Daniel, for joining. Great friend and supporter of Patreon, for example, and the channel. So thanks so much for stopping by. Glad to see you. Okay, so quickly, can you speak about Lord's Dome and generally what it's about? Give us a little bit of
so it's really like, I wanted to do the world building from the perspective of just dropping you right in. You just right there, you don't have context, you don't have a background, you don't know what is this world, what are these people, are they like real, are they, are these even possible people, what is this all a metaphor, is it like, humans? You don't know, I didn't know, I just want to tell a story. So it's about this young girl who works in a mine, and it's not, again, a mine in a complex society. It's not like historical fiction or just that's the world. The whole world is this mine, and you just work and you go to work and you mine and you mine all day, and that's what you do. And you don't question it. And I don't know what you want to. I don't want to spoil too much with the plot, but basically it's just that premise. It's just she works. The dome is a metaphor in a way for. I mean, it's literal in the book, but it's it has so many meanings of protection and a boundary, and boundaries can be good and boundaries can be bad, right? So it's limiting too, and it's protecting, and it's something that protects but also limits, I think I could say. And so she meets this mining elder who's, has I loved writing the book from the two age perspectives, basically a young teenager and then someone of an ambiguously older age. Clearly, in this world where it's a very tough life, she's one of the oldest, but I don't know how old she really is. Probably not tremendously, because there's also the idea that as a young person, the young person asks the question. You can't ask a question. Why are we doing this? Why do we have to do this? Do we have to do this? And we need the young people for that. But also that I don't want to negate the people before that, because it's not easy. You don't just get to ask the question and make the world a different. People are oppressed. They have been lied to. They don't have ways out. The system is very powerful. So there's this older person who's pivotal in helping this young person. So I guess I wanted to show that concept that we all have a role, and you know, in real life there aren't easy solutions, and I don't think there was an easy solution here. But it was also this quirky little story. Just I didn't want to make it feel like the real world, because the real world does not end in this many pages. So it's just a little piece of art, a story. You can think of it as extracting an element out of real life that is not meant to suggest that our lives are that wedge, but maybe is fun, is interesting, is thought-provoking. That's what I was trying to do with it.
And it was phenomenally done. And some of the things that I loved about it, I mentioned that you pack so much in this book. A bit of a romance, a romance between essentially two people who otherwise, based on their positions, would not have necessarily been or should have, I guess, based on their societies, I would have been in a romance. The biggest thing was, the ability and necessity for people of a certain generation and the established people, the people who are in positions of authority and power, to our need to trust our younger generation, our need to trust in their instincts, to listen to what they have to say, not to write them off as their perspectives as being irrelevant, and what that means, like what that will be required of us to make that leap, and that if we don't, that there's consequences. And that was beautifully done.
Thank you.
In this book, and that's something that really again resonated with me. And also the fact that the altruism of the main character, in that really she was motivated by trying to save her brother from a certain fate, right?
Yes.
And that we often attribute, and it's a generational thing, I mean, if you're someone who subscribes, okay, well, the baby boomers versus Generation X versus Generation Z, and we have we make these generalizations and things about, we ascribe these attributes to these, but what we forget is that sometimes we forget we're all people on the same planet, and we all, a lot of ways, we share these commonalities in terms of goals and objectives, what we want, safety, security, being prosperous, all these things. And I think, this main character, at an age where normally you consider, okay, immature, doesn't really know what's going on, can't be trusted, opinion can't be trusted, but yet she was the key to the whole thing, right? And I love that element, and I'm sure there's lots of other themes that I likely missed reading this book, but those are the ones that really stood out for me, and I assume that was intentional. But
yeah, those are intentional, and yeah, just we are people, and also the idea, I think, it's too complicated. But the idea that we can do things because we want to help other people, the idea that sometimes it's because those people are close to us, the idea that does it have to be when people are close to us. In this book, she didn't have any other people. It was just that was her whole world. So that was the person that she's like, no, I'm not going to let this happen to someone else. But if you take that sliver of the world and you make it the whole earth, our earth brothers, and sisters are being hurt. And maybe you can work in the mine all day, or maybe you don't have to work. Whatever your situation is, is there a point where we just sort of need to return to that mindset of a very astute young person that says, I will not let this person get hurt. Or at least I will ask why. I will ask myself, can I do something about it? Is there anything I can do? But I'm not going to sit there and know this person will be hurt, So I did pack a lot into that. I don't really know where it all came from, but I am very proud of it. I think I was focused on what is the plot, I wrote it the way I would write a flash piece. When I write a flash piece, I'm just like, what am I going to do in this little tiny space? And I just took this moment and said, I'm going to do a flash story that's a novel. That's kind of how I see it, actually. And I do think that the short novel form is very underrepresented and unexplored. People are starting to see novellas, and I even think, it's not exactly which word count. I don't think this reads like a novella. I think it reads like a short novel. And a short novel is different than a long novel or an epic series. It really is. They're just different art forms between the different lengths of writing for different reasons, I think.
No, and I have to agree. And the sign for me of a good book, irrespective of length, and a book that compels me, is that I had to slow down a bit to read it. It's not because your writing is very accessible, it's very smooth, it's nothing to do with grammars or typos, things like there wasn't there. It's because I had to slow down, so I made sure I could absorb all the important elements, because there was a lot to unpack, and it was a short book, and that to me that's a sign of writing brilliance. But the other theme that I wanted to quickly touch on that really struck me was the element of blind faith and questioning things, and questioning, is it all right to question? How much should you question? Is your what are the things that could lead you to question your faith in your societal leaders, your faith in your religion or faith? When I say faith, we're talking about spiritual now. What and when is that appropriate? What's the cost to doing that? And that played out in very interesting ways in this book. Was that also an intentional element?
It was the core of the book. And it was the core of the book because it's funny, I say 2018 like it was a million years ago, but it feels in a way, it was yesterday, but it was also a million years ago. Frankly, I know there are clearly religious analogies, but I think even more so, that's not where my mind was with this. I mean, it wasn't not there, but that was not the core that I was going for. The core that I was going for was, from my own experience, just American whiteness. To grow up, I mean, even, we've talked about, levels of controversy, but even on a very basic level, very basic and hopefully not too controversial level, I was taught as a kid historical things that were just not accurate for whatever reason. You could always say the system did it intentionally, this one person didn't know, whatever. It is a very difficult thing to suddenly realize that a lot of the things that are taught to you in a way that is really quite religious, and I'm not talking about the actual religion, but the concept of what is morality, who deserves what does hard work look like, what is kindness versus nicety, what silence and speaking out and questions unethical. I was really in a place of kind of fury about that. I can't get into all the personal things that were going on at the time, but I've had some reactions from people in my what we call family of origin, and for saying things that were really not controversial. I think that's the thing, is that we are taught that things are controversial, and I'm saying we in that context of American whiteness, I know in Canada, but that's my experience, small town America. We are taught things that come across like a religion, and just the questioning of them is inappropriate. Even on a thing in this book, nothing that Gunan, the young person, asks is controversial. It shouldn't be controversial to say, why do we do this all day? Why is my brother going to have to die for this? That's not controversial. Why does my brother have to die? And yet in this world, oh, you're the wrong, you're impolite, you're uncouth, you're breaking the rules, you're, there's different types of blasphemy in our culture, and they're not all related to actual gods. So the core of this book was me feeling very angry about power consolidation, power hoarding, lies, being lied to, grappling with not only being lied to, but then the reactions from those around you when you simply say, I don't think this is true. And instead of saying, why do you say that? Let's explore that. Or, oh, I can help show you why it is true. It's just daggers, immediate daggers. You're out. That was something in this book. They do not say death ever. That was much more of a metaphor for that questioning. It was, like I said, I'm so layered. I love my writing of layers. You could talk about actual cultures grappling with human death, but it's also, if you will, dead to me. You question, you're out. And that was definitely a metaphor in this, was that, I wouldn't want to simplify. Lots of people talk about religion. No, I don't need to speak on that. That is an element, but it doesn't have to be a spiritual faith or a religious dogma to be told something is unquestionable. And then when you get to a point that in the mind of a child, really, which is not tucking them down, minds of children can be very clear and very astute. In the mind of a child to say, you tell me this has to happen, but it's hurting people. Why is it hurting? Why are we hurting people? And then to be, silenced. That was really the anger that I brought into the story. And whatever else I did with it, it came from that core. And of course, there's all sorts of other elements, like you say, of chosen family and of hope and all age and trusting the youth and all those things. Yeah. And for the record, I would hand all the keys to the 20, I don't want to give specific, to the kids right now. I really would. Oh, they're not, why? No. Talk to a kid these days, I mean, maybe not every kid, but in general, I would throw the entire keys over to the kids and say, what can we do to help? What can we do to help you? And that was really what the elder in the situation came to realize is I like that dynamic, because you mentioned about trusting our kids. We raised them, we taught them some stuff. Let's trust them. But there's also the other side of that, which is, hey kids, like, we're not the worst. We'll help. We've been around. We know some things. Let us help. We'll help. It's complicated, and understanding that's complicated. You could judge this older character. Well, why didn't she do any of these things? Why didn't she do it? And she asks herself that. She says, well, why didn't I ask these? Why didn't I ask these questions? And it's not helpful. What's helpful is what do we do now? And that was also a theme that I guess that comes back to that core theme of asking questions. It's my anger at that concept, but then also the hope of saying, okay, but what do we do about it now? What do we all do about it now? We're all okay. We're all here. What do we do about it now? So yes, that was a lot to put in a little book. And again, if I had sat down and consciously said, I'm going to write a short novel about the entire power dynamic and blah, blah, I don't think I would have done it. But I was like, it's an experiment. I'll just try it. And so I didn't tell myself that I couldn't do it, I guess.
But well, I mean, you succeeded, at least for me as a reader. Again, it was really done. And then my final comment, I guess, about themes would be that also what struck me was, okay, so what are the consequences if we actually ask the questions and it affects the society that we have now? What happens? What's the consequences if it tears down the society, or if it preserves the society? What, so what happens, right? Is it the big moment where everything just devolves and collapses, or is it that it reaffirms what we already have? Okay, we're doing the right thing. Like what
Mhm.
happens? And that pivotal moment of, okay, it's out in the wild now, like the horse out the barn. We've asked the question. Everybody's like, "Ooh, okay, so what do we do with this? Like, with this
Yeah.
new information, what does this mean for us?" That moment of, doesn't necessarily have to mean that the foundation that we build everything on is done. Doesn't mean that everything we've done up to this point is wrong. Doesn't mean that, you know what I mean. And the
Mhm.
nuances there were
Thank
really
you.
really good in that book. So I just want to, in telling what you work. So from what I can see from your Goodreads list, is that the and forget the pronunciation, the
Oh, no.
Shakoti.
Yes.
Is that like your magnum
Yes.
opus? That's your
I
main
am not
series.
the authority
And
for
then,
that either. It's a very odd story, and I have a indigenous elder friend who believes that these spirits brought me to him and brought this to pass. And I can't get into all that. I'm not the right person to speak to it, but it's actually a Anishinaabe word, and I'm not going to say it correctly because I'm just not. I'm going to attempt because I speak like this, and that language is slow. I remember he says, Emily, just like I can't brain, but it's Skoda, and I said it too fast, but something like that. But it means fire in Anishinaabe, and again, that was a title that I chose like 10 years ago, and but it spoke to me at the time, and he has since named me the Shkode Kwe, which is the fire woman, and it's a title that I carry proudly. And yes, so that was a trilogy. I also can call it the Dragon Trilogy, but
okay, so that's a trilogy, and that's your main series. Is that your what you would consider your main series, or the body of work that is most identified with you? Is that
it was. I think there's a lot of good in that trilogy. I am so proud of it. It is very me of 10 years ago. And I think as long as people read it with that in mind, I was not mentally well. I was floundering in a lot of social contexts. So I really put into that trilogy, and it's very strange. Um, but I think it also has some really good moments. As long as you understand, as long as you take it for this was Emily's big trilogy that she wrote like in a very troubled place, I'm very proud of it. I think what I'm known for now, frankly, a lot of it is the editorial work and with the press, but is my current series, which is the Alicia series, Night Ivy and Ink Bloom. And then later this year, I will have the third book, Storm Tree, which I'm very proud of, and I'm editing now. So my I would like to be remembered for Alicia. As a writer. I mean, obviously, that's a lot of the work we've done with the press is quote more important. I shouldn't say that, but still will. But personally, I'm very, very proud of the Alicia series, and it's where I'd like to do more other projects and small things, but Alicia is where I want to continue to write. For whatever time I have left, which hopefully isn't too short, but the main character Zell. I would love again that concept of the storyteller. I would love to take you till her old age. Show her, see what the other generations, the people in the series who are children now, what do they do, and all of that. I love that world very much.
okay? So can you tell us a bit more about the Alicia series? Like what?
Yeah. So it's very, I'll just say it, world building based because, like I said, that year in 2020 when I was sitting out in the backyard and very, very in a bad place, and the thing that distracted me from very severe depression was just this world building. So I'm not suggesting everyone should be severely depressed and world build. Don't recommend. But since I did that, I put everything into that world building. It was my handhold. It was the thing I could do that didn't have me cycling on everything else and myself and my very serious issues, which I'm doing better now, which is good. Um, that's every time I sort of lost control of myself or my ability to feel anything remotely good, that's where I went. I went to that world, but I am a 90s gal that loves Excel. I had a big spreadsheet, big sexy spreadsheet with tabs and tabs and tabs. And I sat there and thought about all of it. I thought about, before I wrote a thing in this world, I thought about, okay, what is the system of magic? What is the core? Because world building does have a message. When we build a world, it's usually not just, oh, it's like Earth, but there's usually something about the world that you want to focus on. Because otherwise you just use Earth. I think that when you take a second world, you tune the dials, turn these down. I'm going to turn this one up because I want to explore this one more, So you turned all those dials on the world, and what are these towers? Which parts do I want to be classic fantasy, tropes like the mage towers? I love that. And dragons. And which parts do I want to be really different? And who are these characters? And what are their personality traits? And what are their disabilities? And what are their, even orientations and genders and all these things? I sat on that spreadsheet all year. And so now when I write it and I have to make myself like, I'll make up a term and I'll be like, Emily, go update the spreadsheet. I feel that world so deeply that I just want to tell these stories. Now it's like, okay, what's going to happen in it? So, and when I say world building, I had always been told that I'm best at world building and characters. And so I guess I just leaned into that and said, okay, well, Alicia is this world and it's these characters and I don't know what they're going to do, but let's have fun. Let's go. It's a little bit like the concept, I think, of like D&D or role play. It's like, I do view them that way. It is not an insult to me when people say these books are wandering or they feel old-timey, like storytelling, or they have a gaming feel. Good. If that's not what you want, read other books. There's lots of books out there. That's what I'm writing. That's what I'm passionate about in that context. So I just want to write. I want to write in this world forever. I really love it. And the first book to start with, if you're interested, and I do have them both in audio that I read, is Night Ivy is the first book.
Okay, all right. So that definitely has to go on the TBR for sure. So, especially after sampling Lord's Omen, it was wonderful. See, I plan to definitely to read more of your work. It sounds fascinating. Are there any other works that maybe, like you said, Lord's Omen was kind of like, okay, this is a great book. I kind of wrote it, and kind of that's that. Are there any other books of yours that you'd like to highlight that maybe perhaps even people who have read your other works aren't really aware of?
There is. And okay, this is fun. So I know it's like, do you have to say everything with a tragedy? Yes, everything has a little side of tragedy. That's the fun. That's life. It's not fun, but you know what I'm saying. We actually did have an author recently pass away. And because of that, I did not unveil the new book that I got because I just wasn't in that place, right? But I can show it now for the first time. I mean, it's online, but I have a physical copy to show for the very first time. So I would like to do that. But first, this makes me laugh. Okay, we're going to talk about the just duology, which is very silly. And I wrote it when I was trying to start up a Patreon in 2018 also. So like this pattern of, I think 2018, it doesn't matter. 2019? Yeah, 2018, late 2018. And it just got concluded. It's 50 episodes. And again, it was one of these things where I wasn't writing it to be like a masterpiece. It was just like, I'm going to write something fun. I'm going to have fun. It's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be absurd. And then I can never stick with that, right? I can't do it. So it did stay silly and fun and absurd. But as it went on, there started folding in, Emily's layers, started folding all these like philosophical and like psychological. And I realized, okay, this is very much like some kind of psychological study of me and all my various aspects, and we're just gonna go with it. But it's not about me. Okay, one thing I really love so it's 50 episodes. They're all short story length, and I love that people can read it on a spectrum. And people, by the way, get mad about which side of the spectrum like they're reading it on. So you read it how you want to read it if you read it. What I mean by that is some people view it as an absolute fantasy. 100% fantasy. There really is, a talking horse and a talking whiskey bottle and portals to other dimensions and future town that only horses and robots live in, and it's all real in the fantasy. Other people read it as, okay, this is a story about two actual human beings who went through a lot and are finding their joy. And all of this is some sort of metaphor for either, pick your favorite thing. They're drinking, they're dreaming, they're doing none of that. It's just a metaphor. And this is purely psychological. You read it how you want to. Like, I love it. I love that it's so layered, and it turned something that I was just like, oh, I'll just write these little silly episodes, and then it turned out to be such a thing. So this is the first one, and I'm going to show you. This one book has this shiny gold medal on it because it is my only award-winning book, and it cracks me up.
Congratulations.
It was, again, this was all that 2020 stuff. This actually came out 2021, so it was the Midwest Independent Publishers Association, which I'm not so involved with them anymore, but the judges for this were like Midwestern librarians and booksellers. And in the entire spec fit category, what do they get but this nonsense about like a queer, not cow, not boy, not girl with a talking whiskey bottle, and it's vegan, and they go to robot places, and it's just ridiculous. And it wins. And I felt so bad for the other people that went up against it, who had these like riveting, sci-fi tales, like, the tower and the kids, and it's very, like, I'm sure very well done, traditional, like, science fiction. This is my book. And then it's like, the winner is Just Bart. And I'm like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. But I love it. I think it's okay. I really do. So it's psychological, it's funny, it's just absurd. It's and it's not a Western, by the way. It's the first book riffs off this trope of, like, from me watching lots of Gunsmoke. There's so many layers to this, I don't even want to like go into them all. And then I decided I was going to juice that book, and I was inspired by someone at Origins Game Fair who bought it to read on travel, like for work, and said, well, an episode, I can do an episode here, an episode there, maybe one on the plane, and came back the next morning and said, I read the whole book, I couldn't stop, and was so happy. And I was like, okay, so someone actually likes this. And I just kept thinking about it, and I was like, I'm gonna do it one more time. Now I'm not doing it anymore. I'm done. This is officially done. But this is the second book, the next 25 episodes, Just Chad. And this is the first time I have shown the paper book, because the timing was poor, but now we can celebrate it. And so this is Angel. It's really the main character, but Chad was, snap your name. Chad was my favorite character from Just Bart, who was this robot that Bart meets in Future Town, which is a town that's only inhabited by horses and robots, obviously. And so this is really the story of Angel and Chad and the unicorn, and Cosmo is the talking, like martini glass. And this kind of riffs off the opposite. I guess I was going with like things I liked watching with my dad as a kid or something. There's the Gunsmoke, and then there's sort of the more sci-fi. But again, this is not a sci-fi. This is not a Western. They're just ridiculous. I almost want to apologize for writing them, except I love them so much. And they make people laugh. So, if you don't take things too seriously, you can check them out. And yeah, this is very much a different kind of thing. And they look cool together, and we get to show the spines. I'm proud of them. And they've got the little descriptions on the back. So the description of Just Bart is just a simple folk trying to get by, with a posse comprising of a sparkle-loving horse, an unsettled ghost, and a magic old whiskey bottle. They wander from town to town in search of some needed coin and maybe a brighter day, which was also very much my mood, and like the writer hustle, just like, another day, another dollar. So then Just Chad says, Chad is just a robot from Future Town. With their family network of Angel, a cocktail glass, a flirty phone, and a partying unicorn, he explores the streets of the city in search of hardcore adventures and maybe a bit of the realness. So that's what I have. They're very silly. But they don't get a lot of, views or love, but they're just, like, seriously, read. If you want just an episode, they're absurd. You can read them like once a morning or once on the bus or whatever you're doing. I'm very proud of them. Just have low expectations is all I'm saying.
No, but as it should be. And I mean, all literature already has value. And, as a writer and as a reader, there's different writing and books for different purposes. And sometimes, especially I know for me, because as I said, I generally read the voluminous, dark, deep fantasy stuff. And sometimes you need a break. Even me, and I'm pretty consistent with it. Sometimes I need a break. I want something different. I want something more fun or more light or what have you. And those are important books. Sometimes they just give you that reset that you need to re-energize your love of reading. Sometimes it's just you need a laugh. Like you said, you can be in a dark place. I need to read something light, fluffy, funny, ridiculous. That's gonna make me laugh and
Yeah, I
maybe
wrote
forget
these to
about.
make me laugh, and the fact that they're making other people laugh, you can't beat that. And yes, the comment about shorter fiction, I do tell people that because people are very exhausted, and they, I would encourage people if they can to not give up on longer reading too, because a lot of us feel like we can't do it, and then when you do, you start to, okay, maybe I can do this. But that said, if you're not in that place, um, each story, and there's like 50, is like, I'm sorry, I'm a writer, I speak in words, but 2,000 to 2,500 words, but like a relatively short story. So, and they're all little episodes, they start and finish, they're little individual plots, and then there's kind of a theme that carries through. Um, yeah, I would love, if you haven't been getting into reading and you want something that's silly, just be warned. I told you they're very silly. Very silly.
Okay, folks. Well, so just remember, folks, for silliness on your TBR, check
Yes.
out those books by Emily. I just wanted to quickly comment in the chat. One of our watchers, Eva Destruction, said that I can't read to read all this stuff. I had a stroke a little over a year ago, and when it comes to reading, the shorter a book, the better. I can't wait. Well, that's fantastic here. Eva, I hope you're making a full, complete recovery. Wishing you a speedy recovery on that. Sorry to hear about what happened, but hoping you're doing much better. So, but thank you for the comment. So,
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sending all those wishes as well. I hope you're able to read a couple of episodes. I hope they make you smile. So,
absolutely. So, I wanted to quickly talk to you about the whole writing community. So, we met because we met at a con, and just for those of you, Emily's from Michigan. I'm from Canada. Two state and province that are close together. International border, closest one. The Windsor Detroit border, and we met in London, Ontario, which is about 2 hours east of Windsor / Detroit, and a great con, really great atmosphere. Mine was my first con, and
yeah, I forgot that.
yeah, and we've been to two together now since then, and you go to book fairs all over.
I actually stopped doing a lot of them for a lot of reasons, but I'm going to continue to do London because it's so fun and so pleasant.
Yeah. Okay, but because you have a lot more experience with me than me in actually going out there and meeting people, talking books, being in environments where everyone's there for the purpose of having fun and enjoying books and comics and all those things. And so the community, besides that, there's the social media community for authors, and there's different pockets of that in different corners. There's YouTube, where we are now. There's obviously Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it. There's Facebook, TikTok, you name it, right? What has being part and kind of putting yourself out there, what has that meant for you and your writing and being part of this huge community, almost boundless community that there's some negatives, but so many positives. What's that been like for you?
It's been everything. I can't say otherwise. I don't want to get into my old work careers, but for a lot of different reasons, I was very much a person that was only interacting with the people right around me. And even this is where we say old people things like we didn't have the internet. As kids, we didn't have the internet. It's true. So we were always in this place of you interact with the people that you are around, and there's definitely some advantages to that. But when we moved back here, and it's been difficult. And I have friends all over the earth, and it is everything. And actually, there were people encouraging me to do this. I'm not even all sure they were all giving me actually the best advice, but I'm glad I did it anyway. people that said you have to get out to cons. That's where you'll, meet people, or people that said you should. I have severe anxiety, and I am better in a situation like this where I am talking to somebody that I'm comfortable with, and I'm like, hey, let's chat. It doesn't matter that I'm being broadcast all over the planet, in theory. I can be comfortable with that, but there are certain circumstances where you put me on a panel or on a camera, I am so frozen and so not frozen, but very anxious, very visibly shaken and anxious. And I was like, I can't do video stuff. People won't like me. And I had some people encourage me. No, you have to do it. They're like, get out there. Just be you. And a lot of that was that self-shame. A lot of it was self-absorbed ableism type things, that and frankly, I've had people say that. I guess it goes back to the whole, when you're only interacting with the people in your physical space, the downside to that is that you might not have found your people in that physical space. And there are a lot of people that, would say, I tried your writing and I don't like it because this character is too anxious, or this character is too this. And you're like, oh, well, you're saying you don't like me because there's a lot of me in that character and you just don't like me. Or when you actually start writing about the way you really are and the way you really feel, that you've been, because that's a lot of, fiction can be like book drag, where you're like, oh, I'm just writing fictional characters that act like this. And then it's like, what if I'm like that too, and it was very discouraging to say people don't like my writing, people don't like what I'm doing with it. I guess that means they don't really like me and they don't want me to be myself. So putting myself out there and finding out, well, okay, but in other places there are lots of people like you and people who do like you. And the upside to it is honestly, and I'm not like a, answer and hyperbole kind of person. It has been everything to me, these communities, this community, the writing community, the global community, everything to my life, to me. That said, sometimes it can be a little lonely. Like, I know all these people, but no one can hug me. Like, can somebody come over and hug me? But I'm so glad that I have put myself out there for, in person, on video, because I did say book drag. I just mean the comment that, a lot of times there are art forms that help people express things that they don't feel personally comfortable to express. And I think that in a lot of different ways, fantasy writers in particular do that. Even if it's something as simple as, it doesn't have to be something that is societally looked at. It could just be, actually, I'm kind of this kind of person. I'm not so serious. I am kind of silly. This is the real me. I was raised to be very responsible and uptight and controlled. And, but then when you write this book and it's sort of joyful and queer and all these things, and people are like, well, I'm glad you're not that. And you're like, oh, So then you have to find the people that are like, I hope you're like this, because this is cool. You're like, it's true. So, finding your people is incredible. There's just nothing like it. So.
No, you're right. And that's definitely, I know for me, I'm so happy that that's happened for you. I'm the same way. I've found my tribe through, sometimes it's a bit of trial and error, right? As you indicated, like there's a bit of, you dip your toes into this pool and, ooh, not really for me. But then you find somewhere else where, you feel naturally that you belong to this space and this is where I should be. So that's amazing. So I want to quickly, there is a question in the chat group from Zero Zaku 1. E.D.E, do you have any overlooked fantasy authors that more people should read, especially writers?
Okay, I'm going to answer this, and I'm going to answer it joyfully, but I have to warn you that I with my anxiety, I can sometimes get nervous at these questions, like, oh no, I'm going to forget somebody. So that's fine. We'll talk about people, and I promote people on my social media. You can always follow there. Okay, let me think about people I want to talk about. Brandon O'Brien is one of the most visionary, brilliant people that I know out there. Please support, read, and look up Brandon O'Brien. That is more on the poetry and gaming side than like strictly fantasy, but it's all, related. Fantasy writer. I mean, I'll say one I'll say we mentioned Tad Williams earlier. If you like, I know he's not like undiscovered talent here, but but I will say a lot of people are like, oh, I read his old stuff, it was good. He's writing better than he's ever written, ever. So if you remember him, or if you read the new stuff. It's very worth it. There are, I would a good way to meet a lot of different fantasy writers that are really amazing is to subscribe to magazines out there that are amazing. Like Faya is a magazine of Black speculative fiction, and you will find fantasy writers and other types of writers that you will sometimes, because I could recommend people, but it might not be your thing. So the magazines are a really good way to read and say, oh, who is this? I want to find more by this person because this is I am a super fan, becoming a super fan, if I'm allowed to do that, of Wole Talabi, who, again, not undiscovered, but if you're like, that is someone to watch. He is a writer. Ooh, like, look up the books. And the first, I think it's his first novel, I could be wrong, but is out now with E.D.E books. You can look him up. I'm sure PL can put these things out later. I'm trying to think of. I've read some amazing things. I've been reading a lot of poetry. I actually, because I know I'm going to forget things, I made this really silly hashtag of #EDE book. I was like, it was not my finest writing. And Chris is like, it's pretty bad. And I'm like, I know. But I have that on Twitter and Blue Sky and Mastodon, and if you search on that hashtag, that's anytime I just read and talk about books. Not really reviewing them. I'm just like reading books and talk. I'm trying to. It's time. There's a lot of time issues. I would look into Joyce Ching. Has some really incredible, both like adult level and also like middle grade books that are not getting the attention I think they should. I have so many fantasy writer friends and I'm just like forgetting all of them. So anyway, those are a few that come to mind, but the point is there are so many. Go out there and Bogi Tokach is another one. Look up Power to Yield and Other Stories. Really some incredible fantasy in that recent collection. I know this is what I do. I go, oh, I'm going to forget something, and I'll be like, I should have said that. But I think that's hopefully pretty good for now. And then, of course, you can always check out the things that we're publishing with our press, because if I'm editing it and acquiring it, it's because I love it. I don't publish things I don't love, period. So,
yeah. Fantastic. You just added 3 more things to my Goodreads TBR. So thank you for that. I'm sure you're going to fill up a lot of the people here in the chat and watching the live, and those who watch it later fill up their TBRs too. So thank you, Zero Second Run, for that question. We also had another one quickly here from Tim Kulish. Is it possible if you can sign any of your books if a fan requests something like that?
Absolutely. In person, if you come across me, then I can do that. And I'll answer the other question if you're not going to. But I will this year I hope to be at London Comic-Con in September this year. September in London, Ontario. I will be at Gen Con in August in Indianapolis. I'm actually hoping we're actually doing this. I don't know how, but somehow magically going to be at Worldcon in Glasgow. Yes, right? I've never been to the UK at all.
Deb and I are going. We're going.
I know several people are going to be there, and we talk about internet friends. Yeah, Minerva's going, right? Yeah, Minerva Carradwin is going to be there, who lives in Belgium, and Minerva's one of my best friends. And if you were you've never actually met Minerva, right? In person, I'd be like, wait, what? That's not possible. Oh, that's true. Because he's in Europe, and I'm, oh yeah. So I'm going to be and I'm Ava Kelly's coming out here, and then they're going to go to Glasgow, and it's I'm going to touch people. I mean, if they're cool with the touching, I think so. I'll be like, can I touch you? Sorry, I'm excited about seeing real people. And CanCon in Ottawa I believe it's this year, the first weekend of November. I will definitely be there. So
I'll put in for that. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to go, but we've put in for that, so we'll see.
Oh, good. It's such a nice event. They do such a wonderful job with it. So those are the places unless I'm probably forgetting something. No, I think so for now. But if those are not accessible to you, or it's a big planet, I will sign things off the website anytime. So, and there's even a field for it. You can sign or ask for personalizations. Please don't. I don't want to guess, because I don't want to sign it to your name and then find out it was a gift for someone. So just put it in the notes who you want it signed to, or if you want a note, or author's choice. I'm not fussy about it. So if you order off our website, my books are all at edebell.com. And our press is athisarts.com, but those are the store is technically the same. So yeah, if you order books off there, I would love to sign them to you. And I do want to make a point for accessibility that our books are available through libraries. And if there's ever anyone out there that would like to read something, and library access or finances or safety, if it's like a trans book and you don't, just contact me and I will get you the book. Okay, so if you want to read something of ours, contact me. We'll make it happen.
That is absolutely phenomenal. Oh, I'm not really excited. I'm in the same boat as you. I have so many close friends that are writers that I talk to, some of them almost every day, and I've never met them. We formed these bonds, and they're all going to Worldcon. I'm like, I don't know if I have enough tissue boxes to, when we all meet up, and it's. I mean, my co-host on Page Joy Taylor, she's going. I've never met her in person.
Yeah.
In Japan, for example, right?
A lot of authors, I've never. I just assume that I have, because I feel like I know them.
Yeah, I feel like I know them. My closest writing friends, most of them who are in the UK, who I'm going to be talking to later today on another live, is the writing group we have. We call ourselves the Rights. Some of them are going to be there. Like, it's going to be mind-boggling to meet these people in person. So I'm really, really, like you, really, really looking forward to that. And don't let anyone ever tell you that, especially in the post-pandemic world, that you can't form these close relationships and bonds with people online that through social media that you've never met. It is absolutely. I learned, and I would have been skeptical. You asked me this 10 years ago if I could feel so close to people who I've never met before in person. I would have been the first one. It's like, hey, I've learned and grown as a person. I've learned that you can, and you do. So that is something that I'm just, again, so excited to, and I'm so happy for you that you're going to get to meet your best friend.
And actually, this book is dedicated to them. So I think I can turn to it. Is what I was trying to say, because Minerva is actually, people think Minerva is a human, but she's actually like part dragon and part robot. And there's what it says. This book is dedicated to Minerva Caradon, my favorite robot. And I spelled it European favorite to,
That is awesome. And those are two really good points from both Eva and JBJ. Eva says, I've literally told things to people on the internet I've never told real people. Mm-hmm. And JBJ mentions that some of my friends I've met online. So, wow. Emily,
one more, I think probably watching but not chatting. Another one of my best friends, Dimitri, is out there in Greece, probably watching this. So I just want to say hi. And again, could not be closer to this person that you always forget, like, it's internet, but still we're people. Oh, hi, Valia.
Hey, Dimitri, if you're watching. Oh, we have another.
And Valia Dudescu is one of the editors of Embroidered Worlds. So that's a definitely a book to check out. Okay. Yeah, there's so much stuff.
Back to Goodreads. Back to adding.
Yeah.
So was that Embroidered? Is that what we said?
Embroidered Worlds is the collection of Ukrainian fantastic fiction that it was out. It was actually just reviewed by the largest independent.
Fantastic feature fiction from the Ukraine and the diaspora.
Yeah, the diaspora.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and if you want to see some of these things, there's a whole lot of information on us and the press. We actually are doing like a awareness rally, and there's all kinds of things. There's some things that people can donate to or purchase from. There's a pop-up clothing shop that is only open through April. It features a gorgeous design of all of our little characters by Matthew Spencer, who's a wonderful Michigan artist. And also, for those in the know, Gray Stick, which is the stick figure fan art version of Gray Shade, is on a hoodie and sweatpants. So You can get a gray stick hoodie or gray stick sweatpants, just saying, but only through April. But all these links, and there's some the review of Embroidered Worlds that was just done. There's some videos and really cool things that are all linked at athisarts.com/rally. It's a redirect, but if you just do athisarts.com/rally, I'm just trying to get awareness to all the stuff we're doing, and there's many links there that you could go into. And if you are interested in the Ukrainian fiction collection, there was a Kickstarter. It's done now, but there were all kinds of updates from people and interesting cultural notes, and it's just paging through those updates is really reading in its own. So
that's awesome. Okay, I'm taking notes. Also, I think the good reads as seriously as I listen to you. Tim Coolidge, thanks so much for you and value your comments that that you really enjoy the conversation, and it's so kind to say that we're wonderful people as you are. So thank you for that.
It's been making me blush the whole time. Like, you say all these really nice things about me, and I'm like, oh, stop! Like, people is awesome.
Yeah, no, this is one of the things on the online space, we just love. I wanna be respectful of your time, Emily. You've been so generous with it. We could probably keep talking for a few more hours, but I know it's funny, and I have another life coming up later too. So, but I do want to give you an opportunity to provide a sign off in terms of where can people find you in the social media space, where can they buy your books, anything else you'd like to say in wrapping up?
Really, those 2/3 websites have all the info that you could want and much more info that you don't want. So I'm at edebell.com, and it has my there's these cute little, I think they're cute little floaty icon things. I'm most active on Blue Sky, but I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. I mean, the hustle, you just can't disappear from everything right now. So yeah, you'll see all the places I'm at, but we have a Discord. We have 2 Discord communities. We have a Discord community for Atthis Arts and one it's called Emily World, sort of facetiously, but it's a really lovely community of very supportive people. And all those links are on edebell.com. So EDE Bell. I told you, I speak too quickly, I know. edebell.com or athisarts.com, athisarts.com. All the social media. So honestly, follow us on social media. That's huge. It makes a big deal, because then, even if you're overloaded with other things, it's like, just follow us and you can see what's going on. And again, just for right now, that athisarts.com/rally has a bunch of stuff that we have going on, including the pop-up shop, the clothing shop, including another funding effort we're going with, and lots of other things. And reach out to me anytime. I'm on social media. I'm happy to chat. So I like you, and I like all of you. I like PL, but I'm speaking to everyone out there. I like you, and I like talking to cool people that appreciate art and appreciate other cool people. So
fantastic. And yes, thank you, Dan, for that comment, especially about Paige doing that. That's a huge honor for me to know that.
That's sweet. Yeah. Okay. It's not just me. I think you're muted.
I'm sorry. Rookie mistake there.
Okay. It was just for that. It was just since that last time you started talking.
Yeah. So again, I want to thank everybody in the chat. You all are what makes these live discussions fantastic. Can't name everybody, but yeah, you're all wonderful. I want to thank you so much, Emily, for your time and being willing to be interviewed. Absolutely, you're so dynamic, you're so positive, you're such a great person and a great addition to the community. So thank you for doing that. Someone who I look up to as a leader and honored to call a friend. And yes, I am, I'm P.L. Stewart, me, author of the John Kingdom Saga, and also co-host of Page Chewing with my awesome co-host made between the pages. This, of course, links for Emily will be in this live, and of course, hopefully those of you who didn't get a chance to catch it will catch the replay. read, go read Emily's books. She's a wonderful writer, and I plan to read a lot more of she writes. We didn't get a chance to talk about it. However, I will quickly mention, and there'll be more about this because I will be interviewing the author. So um, Emily is, as we talked about her publishing, she's also the publisher of Pluralities. This is a book that, thanks to Emily, I got to read. It is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much, Emily, for getting me onto this book. It's currently essentially my small press / indie book of the year. It's going to be hard to unseat it. I have, thanks to Emily again, I'm going to have the privilege of interviewing the author very soon, just as I have Emily. I can't wait for that. So
when you talk to Avi, I will be here. I'm so excited for that.
I hope so. That'd be fantastic. So yeah, just another reason why all these connections and the people you meet in the space are just so important, because thanks to my knowing Emily, friendship, relationship, and admiring her, she got me onto this book, which she publishes, and this has been a life-changing book. So it just goes to show you how much these things can mean in terms of really adding something to your life. Once again, Emily, thank you so much. I know we'll be talking soon and hopefully seeing each other soon. Mm-hmm. If not in London, then in Glasgow. So
yes.
Once again, everybody, thanks so much for joining us and tuning in live, and spending your time here. I know it's long form content, but this is why we love it, because you get to learn so much more about a wonderful person such as Emily and what she writes. So thanks for joining, and everyone have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will be speaking soon. Bye-bye now.